What's up, everyone? Welcome back at long last to Let's Play Bayonetta. I am Scribe, and in the last episode, we flew a missile to the Isla del Sol. Rather, we rode one. And now we have our final fight with Jeanne. And just a heads up, this episode is going to be pretty stitched together because I kept playing really sloppy or missing QTs, which is par for the course for me. And then I would just suicide to restart the fight, so I'm just going to string the successful sections together here and cut out a lot of garbage footage. So, something I brought up, I think in the last episode or the episode before that, this whole level used to be a military base, and it used to be an abandoned military base. So, all of the missile launches, and you're going to see even more missile launching later on in this fight, all of that stuff made sense in the context that it was an old military base. So when they had to change this section, they cooked up the Horn, the missile defense system, or the anti-air batteries that are placed on the, I think it was the corner building on each corner of the island. And so that's how the Horn missile defense thing came to be. It was written to contextualize this whole sequence. So, this episode is largely going to be devoted to a topic that I've been saying that I was going to talk about for a very, very long time, and that is the topic of whether or not this game is sexist, or at least exhibits some kind of sexist tendencies. And this discussion is going to take up probably the next 10 straight minutes or so, and I'm pretty sure there's a cutscene somewhere therein. So this is probably going to also bleed into the penultimate chapter, chapter 15. So we'll see where that goes. Now, as for the topic itself, I've been kind of putting this off for a while because the last time I talked about it was very, very early on in the game, and that whole spiel that I went off on just kind of went nowhere, and it was not even conclusive or really insightful. And since then, I've been struggling with what to say on the topic. For one, most of it's, I was thinking, probably already been said. And of course, this whole playthrough is consisted of me culling from various sources to bring you guys a big curated assortment of trivia and minutia and insight. So that didn't put me off too much. That, and this is a topic where I eventually thought, I can not only research and synthesize information, but bring something new to the table with some careful thought. What's been throwing me for a loop is that the conclusion seems so obvious. Is food good for you? Yes. Why? Well, because it provides me with the calories and nutrients I need to function. Is the game sexist or misogynistic? Yes. Is that bad? Yeah. Why is it bad? Well, because it unfairly perpetuates a subset of societal stereotypes that disempowers an entire gender or disparages them. What makes that hard to swallow is that it's a strong accusation to level against a game that is so well loved by its fans. It puts everyone on the defensive because they feel they're being accused of misogyny by virtue of liking a game that exhibits some of those tendencies. It can create a sort of cognitive dissonance wherein you question your own morals for having a fondness for something that has some amoral elements. To that, I think the first step in moving the discussion forward is resolving that cognitive dissonance. You can like something in spite of its faults, is the underlying point I'm trying to get at. Some people have a high threshold for tolerating egregious problems with games, films, books, what have you. Others, not so much. Some people might totally hate this game for perceived sexism. Others, like me, will still love it in spite of this fault. It contains an element that I'm not entirely comfortable with, but I still love it in spite of that. I totally understand if somebody hates the game for the sexist portrayal of the main character, or others, I might add. That's my threshold compared to theirs. Others might love Shadow Complex in spite of the fact that the game was written by Orson Scott Card, who is an outspoken and, in my opinion, an appalling homophobe. And even if I thought the game itself was good, I can't stand Orson Scott Card, and I would have avoided buying it had I known what I know about him when I did buy it. I don't begrudge anyone who loves Shadow Complex in spite of Orson Scott Card and his ideals, and I don't think anyone who likes Shadow Complex or likes any of other Card's works is necessarily homophobic. It's a false dichotomy. The other reason I finally decided to really hammer out my thoughts on this is that with the topic of sexism and feminism becoming an increasingly large snowball within the games industry, highlighted this week with the release of Anita Sarkeesian's first Tropes vs. Women in Video Games episode, and the controversy surrounding God of War Ascension and its Bros Before Hoes achievement. The topic isn't going away anytime soon, and it shouldn't either. Personally, I don't think every accusation of sexism is valid, nor do I think every controversy that falls under the umbrella of feminism is reasonable. There's a lot of crying wolf, but we as gamers have to be able... not even as gamers, but we as people have to be able to at least rationally parse these arguments and recognize that there are tons of examples of completely unchecked sexism in video games. And it goes both ways. Males are saddled with machismo stereotypes and are made to feel like we're made to feel like stoicism or rage are the complete emotional gradients that we should be allowed to express, while women get stuck being hyper-sexualized objects or damsels in distress or both. Even empowered women in games, Bayonetta being a chief example, are portrayed in one of these two ways. And it's a double standard to pretend that women are the only ones getting this kind of treatment, though to be fair, they do kind of get the short end of the equality stick within our society. Now, I will continue this whole, I'll continue this thought process in just a moment, but I think we are coming up on the end of the fight, which means we are getting a cutscene pretty shortly here.
Now it's decided. So it is. The fear is still not gone from your eyes. Fear? The memories you've held for 500 years are the source of your fear. They cloud your vision. But now, you've accepted your fate. That is how you bested me. That is why you possess the most beloved of Umbran treasures. That is why you possess the left eye. We fought for this stone, and because of it, everyone died. That gem brings back so many memories. The left eye, our treasured left eye, will never fall into the hands of another. I will not stand for the wild ambition of a treacherous Lumen sage who disrupted our age-old balance. Your path ends here. Do not fear your fate. Stand, Teresa. In the innocence of our childhood, we used to play together as friends. But as time passed, perhaps even my eyes were clouded with fear. We were. Do not fear your fate. Stand, Teresa. Stand and open your eyes. For with every truth, there is another one to be seen. Jeanne.
Hey, is it over? What? It's not like you don't scare the shit out of me all the time.
Cereza. I don't know whether to shoot you, or to take you to Vegas for good luck, Cheshire.
Give me more credit than that. If you must know where L-U-K-A Luca is concerned, there's no such thing as luck. Only skill. You didn't expect me to trust bitches. I mean, witches, did you, Bayonetta?
How's the little one?
Out like a light. But okay other than that. What about you? You really think I'm gonna let myself be seen in public with a girl looking all beat up like that?
Oh. I look dreadful, do I?
Huh?
You'll have to learn to wipe that stupid look off your face, or I'll never let you keep chasing me around this world. Got that? Luca?
Now that's more like it.
Welcome back, little one.
Mummy, where are we?
It looks like someone's expecting us. Awfully nice of them to roll out the red carpet.
Luca, you need to get one thing straight.
Yeah, I know. I won't look after you, so don't screw up. I got things under control.
Let's go. Stay next to me, little one.
Daddy?
What?
Daddy, it's Daddy!
Daddy?
Of course, Mummy. Can't you hear him? Okay, Daddy, I'm coming. And I'll bring Mummy with me.
Little one, wait!
This way, Mummy.
Little one! Little one!
Cerecita! Bayonetta! Damn it!
Okay, so you might have noticed I did a little bit of cutting there just to get everything nice and compressed and compact. And I'll steer a little bit off topic from what I was talking about a couple minutes ago to point something story-related out. So in that cutscene, in those series of cutscenes, we got one of the biggest revelations yet. Jeanne was a close friend of Bayonetta's, and during the witch hunt she shielded Bayonetta and the Left Eye of the World from the Lumen Sage by sealing her away for 500 years. In that time, the Lumen Sage captured and brainwashed Jeanne. So now Bayonetta is finally piecing all of her fragmented amnesic memories together. And the text above the gem in the scene with the cutscene with Jeanne reads Cereza and Jeanne. And Jeanne also addresses Bayonetta as Cereza, so I can finally stop dancing around this. Hooray! Bayonetta is Cereza, and we'll have to deal with the implications of that soon enough. And finally, Cereza races off towards Daddy, and we will find out who Daddy is at the end of this level. But, back to the topic at hand. Now, this is like the part 2 to this. As far as just feminism and misogyny goes, I think one thing that doesn't get considered enough when this topic gets brought up is that there is a difference between expressing sexuality and sexual objectification. That's where Bayonetta actually gets complicated in my mind. I stated that the conclusion to the question, is the game sexist? That the portrayal of Bayonetta is... it seems so obvious that it's sexist. And I wavered back and forth for a while after that. After I made my initial conclusion. She's sexualized. Hell, she's hyper-sexualized. Think back to the dance scene when the Joy enemy was introduced, or the fact that she has to be naked to summon an infernal demon, or most of the bloody game. But is that in and of itself objectifying her? Well, when the camera is constantly lingering on her ass, clad in tight black leather, or panning across her crotch as she spreads her legs, or zooms in on her tits constantly, it's hard to argue that they aren't treating her just as eye candy in those moments. She isn't just sexy and flaunting it. The developers have made the conscious decision to provide their male demographic with fan service, the equivalent of the anime panty shot. I think it's important though that we always ask the question, instead of instantly conflating a sexy character with misogyny. The question being, is she being objectified? Is the portrayal of this character misogynistic in some way? Because there's nothing inherently wrong with embracing sexuality, it's more harmful to repress it. At best, you can argue that when every female protagonist is paper-thin with huge tits and revealing clothing, that it creates an unrealistic self-image issue. And just as I bring this up, we have the jiggle physics. But merely having a busty, attractive, sexualized heroine isn't enough to warrant it being called sexist. There has to be something more to go on if you're going to accuse a game of exploiting that sexualization in, for example, a cynical or morally bankrupt attempt to sell more copies to an adolescent male audience. When you frame the argument as hypersexuality bad, with no room for nuance or context, you create an unfair perception that basic human sexuality is itself a problem. My issue with Bayonetta is that there's evidence that she was purpose-built to be equal parts empowered action heroine and eye candy for the young men who just want to ogle her. Then again, there are equally compelling arguments that posit the opposite idea, that the game isn't sexist and that Bayonetta is a positive female protagonist. And I'll try to cull from both sides here. So, on that end of things, and I think I might have told this story before, there used to be a time where during the game, Madonna songs would play in the background. and that eventually fell through, but Kamiya once stated that the idea was to merge Madonna's status as a sex symbol with Bayonetta's strength. His goal was for that hypersexuality to be a tool of empowerment. Now, on the other hand, if you read many of the Platinum blogs, particularly on Bayonetta's character design, you get the vibe that the artists were working hard to create something for the development team just to ogle. And furthermore, I stated a few episodes ago that Kamiya also said of the Joy dance-off sequence, he thought the scene embodied the female mentality, meaning that all women are pretty much adversarial towards each other and catty. Furthermore, from a 1UP developer interview talking about Bayonetta using her magic to form her hair outfit, and what the implications are of her losing her magical power. So when she gets weak or something, she might just lose her magical power, and if that happens, you know what that means. Now, on the other hand, I want to quote Leigh Alexander for a bit. One short quote and then one at length. Positive doesn't mean sexless, and legislating a woman's appearance or use of her sexuality isn't feminism. Now, the next thing I'm going to quote from at length is from a post she made a couple years ago on I think GameSpot, and the article was titled Bayonetta, Exploitative or Empowering? Quote, "Eager as we are to make progress beyond the industry's bad habit of reducing female characters to either sidekicks or sex objects, it's unfair to strip video game women of their sexuality completely, or to assert that if a character is sexual that she must be getting exploited. It's wonderful that our entertainment medium is developing more characters that bring more to the table than their looks, but at the same time we can accept that being mousy, tomboyish, or turtleneck is not the only way a woman can be considered admirable. Bayonetta's elegant nakedness and the fervor of battle is not in and of itself a bad thing." Now, there was also another post I've come to really love on obligatory Spider Queen, titled Bayonetta Totally in Control of Herself. And it's a post that goes into a lot of the imagery, especially from a feminist perspective, in Bayonetta, and I quote, "Take the high-heeled shoes that you're expected to suffer for the visual enjoyment of men and make them implements of murder. Take the long hair associated with gentle, passive womanhood and strangle the crap out of them. Do it with your BFF, who you appeared to be forced into competition with by the patriarchy, but who is always truly on your side. When your clothing comes off to reveal your naked body, you're the opposite of vulnerable, tearing massive enemies limb from limb." It's a post espousing that these images, these implements of femininity, are the very devices that empower Bayonetta. Her sexuality is literally a weapon in this case. Or in these cases, rather. So, that's about all I have to say on the topic. As far as conclusions go, I still think that the game exhibits some sexist tendencies that are more evidenced by the design ethos than anything. Not necessarily just by her being a sexy character. And I think the conclusion is a lot less cut and dry than you would normally think. So after 20 minutes of that, I did not think of a good segue. So, hey, look over there, Alfheim Challenge. This is, I believe, the second to last Alfheim Challenge here. The last one comes in the prologue, or the epilogue. Wait, which one is which? It comes during the extra Requiem. And this one, for being penultimate, is a little bit disappointing. It's more interesting than, I think, the last one. I actually don't remember what the last one was, but I remember not being impressed by it. And the last one was also one that I had never done before up until this playthrough. So just like all of these just like all of the ones before this, we are going to use this basic hit and run tactic where we pop into Panther form and take a nice little punch kick punch wicked weave swipe at these guys because they are in fuego. Oh man, I sure hope I got this one on the first attempt, because while I was editing the other parts of this video together, I forgot to check to see how many attempts the Alfheim took. So this might just go on for another 30... Actually, no, it's impossible for this to go on for another 30 minutes. So we are 27 minutes into a 30-minute video. So at most, I failed this one time, but it's looking like things are going pretty well. I don't think this will kill. I think it might take another couple swipes. And this might be the last enemy. It should be, actually, because there's 28 seconds left. Yeah, cool. Okay, so I did one-shot it. That's nice. That's some consolation after all the sloppiness that I had to go through and edit out earlier from the Jeanne fight. And I think I just exhausted, in the past 25 minutes, all of my thought power is just drained out of me now. Okay, now that we've backtracked to the very beginning of the level, we can progress forward, climbing and ascending the tower. And, let's see, there's only 2 minutes left in this video, so I don't want to get into the story that I have about the tower and the way this stage was built in relation to the last level and what happens there. So, anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, folks. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. Have a good one.